a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk about what can go wrong with algorithms and hopefully introduce a way to think about anticipating those problems. So first I want to tell you what I mean by problems. I have a book I wrote called Weapons of Math Destruction, and I will define those for you. So what is a weapon of math destruction? It's an algorithm, which I mean a predictive algorithm, predicting success in some way, whether it's like somebody who clicks, somebody who purchases, or what have you. We'll have some examples. It's important, making important decisions for a lot of people. So who gets a job, who gets a loan, who gets into college. It's secret. There's a scoring system typically. People get scored. If they get above a threshold, they get an opportunity. If they get below that threshold, they get denied that opportunity. And they don't understand their score. So it's secret. Often it's secret that there is a score. They often do not know they're being scored. And finally, the final characteristic of a weapon of math destruction is that it's unfair. It destroys people's opportunities that they deserve at an individual level. So it's an important scoring system predicting success that denies people opportunities unfairly. And I'll just add that generally speaking, when you discover WMD, you find out it's not just failing for individuals, but failing for society. It usually starts out with a well-meaning goal in mind, and not only fails to meet that goal, but actually undermines its own goal. So I found a bunch of examples of weapons of math destruction, algorithms in various industries and fields that are deciding important things about people, about their finances, about their liberty, about their livelihood, their jobs, or even about political information and other kinds of information. And here's examples of where WMDs sit in a college application, even high school applications, getting a job, keeping a job, getting a loan, buying insurance, following politics, policing, and we're going to go into an example in depth around healthy human services. So why do I tell you about this? Well, as I said, they undermine their original goals. The goals are often quite good, quite important, difficult problems, and they don't actually solve those problems, they make them worse. I will argue today that they actually undermine science. We call this data science, and we ask people to trust the algorithms because they should trust science and mathematics. Sometimes we say it's math. But if they're not trustworthy, and we're asking people to trust over and over again, then we're actually undermining people's trust in science, and that's a problem. Many times they're used primarily as a way of becoming more efficient, less biased, or more profitable, but they also have this kind of secondary aspect to them, which is that they decrease accountability. People typically don't have appeal system for these scoring systems, and when people actually find mistakes, it's like, well, that's not my mistake, it's the machine. So in some sense, it's unclear whose mistake is it? Who is accountable when algorithms fail? So this is one of the things I want to talk about today, is an approach to thinking about accountability for algorithms. I will also make a case, that mostly I make it in my book, that weapons of math destruction increase inequality and threaten democracy. And I'll quickly say why. They increase inequality because essentially naive algorithms, and most of them are extremely naive, propagate the past. They just repeat patterns from the past because they're trained on historical data. And what they do with that past is they offer opportunities to people that look lucky, look like people who have gotten opportunities in the past, and they deny opportunities to people who look unlucky, who look like they were people who were denied opportunities in the past. So they essentially make lucky people luckier and unlucky people unluckier. And that is a way of increasing inequality, or at least maintaining inequality. But I'd actually argue that if you add the ingredient that we trust these things and we give them power through that trust, that they actually increase inequality. And I think the threatening of democracy is something that we are seeing happening right now as we see Facebook newsfeed algorithm continue to give us outrage, misinformation, and non-factual information. not to mention allowing political campaigns to manipulate us at the micro-targeting level. So there's a lot going on here, and not all of it is easy. Many of these issues are extremely complicated, but I do think that we can approach them in a better, more standard way. And when I say more standard, I do not mean an automated way. There's no way to automate ethics, but there are ways to sort of think through who is going to be affected by this algorithm and what does it mean for them for this algorithm to fail. In fact, I think the very first question we should ask ourselves when we come across an algorithm, when we're designing an algorithm, is for whom might this fail? And what does it mean to fail or succeed? The ethical matrix is that paradigm that I'm going to introduce you to. So really what I'm doing is two things in this talk. I'm talking to you about specific examples of weapons of mass destruction, but at the same time I'm trying to illustrate what it would look like to have been more accountable in building these algorithms in the first place. The goal is to improve the